Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany, a retired librarian turned homeschool mom, and this is a video of my homeschool legal videos. So this is a part of a much larger collection of homeschool legal videos. This one specifically focusing on the U.S. states that pretty much all you need to do is register to homeschool. So if you want the more complicated states and the semi-complicated states, those are previous videos. This is going to be the second to last. My next video is going to be covering the states that really don't have that many laws on homeschooling. So this is one of the easier states. So I'm going to be going through those states that pretty much is just registration. So the first one we're going to start with here is the state of Arizona. So let me bring up Arizona's homeschool laws. And so homeschooling in Arizona. So pretty much what you need to do is your kids have to attend school between 6 and 16. And then they do recommend that the subjects include reading, grammar, mathematics, social studies, and science. So in order to homeschool, you need to file a notarized Arizona homeschool affidavit, cannot speak, with the name, date of birth, and current address of the child or children, the name, telephone, and address of the parent or legal guardian, and proof of birth for each child. So essentially that I don't know if it's exactly, you need a copy of the birth certificate that's kind of been notarized. So, and then you have to send that to the superintendent of your county once. That's it. So that's pretty much all you have to do. They do want you to, the record keeping is pretty much non-existent. Though for the two major universities, U of A and NAU, they do require a portfolio. ASU is useless. Don't go there. It's a horrible school. I do not advocate it. I got my BA there. It's still a nightmare. Don't go there. Just don't. I got my master's from U of A. My husband went to law school there. Much, much better school. NAU has better programs. So ignore ASU. Not to mention they require you to have a high school diploma or GED. The community colleges seem to be the same. But again, the two better schools, the schools you want to go to if you come to the state of Arizona, don't go to ASU again, horrible school, require a portfolio. I think NAU requires the SATs, or maybe ASU, but they do both schools do in fact require a portfolio. But that is it for the state of Arizona. So the next state we are going to move on to is Connecticut. So let's move on to Connecticut here. And let me get to this site. Here we go, Connecticut. So Connecticut homeschooling laws. And okay, so let's go directly to their homeschooling laws. Oh, and as I said in my other videos, I'm getting this information from the site of a curriculum website for Time for Learning. So this just seemed to be the only non-religious website that I can find this information at in bulk, rather than going to all the individual state education websites, which can be confusing and irritating, and sometimes it doesn't have the information you want, at least not easily accessible. So this is the only non-religious, doesn't belong to the Homeschool Legal Defense Association, who are terrorists. You don't want to mess with them. They're scary, alt-right, crazy people. So this is the only site I could find. So back on to Connecticut. So Connecticut homeschool laws, again, this is registration. So these guys are easy. You need to have instruction in reading, writing, spelling, English grammar, geography, arithmetic, U.S. history, citizenship, and including the study of town, state, and federal government, and science, which is recommended. So those are, so this procedure is basically you submit a notice of intent to the homeschool form to the superintendent of schools in your town. Must be filed within 10 days of starting homeschool. So if they were previously attending public school, you do need to inform the superintendent with a letter of withdrawal. And then looks like you need to attend an annual portfolio portfolio review to ensure the instruction required subjects. So there is no evaluation or academic progress or standardized tests. So it's relatively easy. I'm guessing, yeah. And it may be, yeah, they do recommend, let's see, portfolio reviews. You have to have a portfolio. Doesn't look like there's any standardized testing, and I'm not sure, it's not saying when. I'm assuming you have to do this every year. So once a year registration, possibly attend a portfolio review, probably depends. So that is Connecticut. So the next state we are moving on to is, this is Hawaii. Hawaii is actually semi-complicated. I just somehow don't know why on earth I skipped my last review in Hawaii. That is my home state. So if you want to know something about me, I grew up in Hawaii. That's my home. That is my home, so to speak. So Hawaii homeschool laws are probably one of the strangest. They are actually still pretty easy. What you have to do, it's just there's testing. So, and this is one of the only places I found that does this. You have to submit a letter of intent to homeschool to the principal of your local public school where your child would be attending. And then if you're, say, you start in elementary school, if you move to middle school, you have to send another letter of intent to both middle and high school to the principal of the school your child would be attending. This goes the same for if you move. So if you move to a different town and your kid would be attending a different school, you have to send another letter of intent. So yeah, it's a little strange. But again, people don't move in Hawaii a lot. I lived there for the first like 14, 15 years of my life. We never moved. So people don't actually move a lot because there's not really a lot of places to move to. Though I suppose if you changed islands, that wouldn't be a thing. So you do have to keep records, start and end date of your homeschool year, number of hours per week, subjects you taught. And then there's you have to submit an annual progress report. And then you have to test in grades 3, 5, 8, and 10. So yeah, that's the record keeping, the testing. For some reason, yeah, high school requirements. For some reason, I read somewhere else you might have to test a little bit more if you want to go to college. But again, that depends on what the heck you do and where you're going. So the standardized tests, again, are for 3, 5, 8, and 10. So a little more complicated, still relatively easy comparative to some of the other states. So moving on out of Hawaii, we're going to move into, what state? Here we go, Minnesota. So let's go down to Minnesota here. Minnesota homeschooling laws. So let's go down to homeschooling laws here. So again, these are mostly registrations. So yeah, so Minnesota homeschooling laws. Parents are qualified to teach their own children in Minnesota. Pretty easy. You must submit an initial report to the superintendent by October 1st for all children older than 7 years. And within 15 days of withdrawing your child from public school in order to begin homeschooling. So you also, submit a letter of intent to continue homeschooling to the superintendent every year for any child between the ages of 7 and 17. So I'm guessing that's their education requirements. They must teach reading, writing, literature, fine arts, mathematics, science, history, geography, economics, government, citizenship, health, and physical education. So pretty standard high school stuff, or public school stuff. They must take a nationally normed achievement test every year unless the homeschool is accredited by a state-recognized accrediting agency. So yeah, and the parents must keep records, so proof of subjects, annual testing, immunizations, a copy of their schedule, which is interesting. I'm assuming parents can make that up. Descriptions and samples of education materials and curriculum being used by your homeschool. Don't know quite how that works with unschoolers, but I'm assuming they have ways around it. That's what organizations are for. So that looks like this. A little bit more complicated than I thought, but there is, yeah, notice of intent similar to Arizona. Names, birth dates of all children, address of where the child lives, names of annual tests you plan to use, your basically parent's name or the instructor's name, evidence of teaching credentials if necessary, required if the instructor is not a parent, so if you're using a tutor, and proof of immunization compliance at age 7 and again in 7th grade. So immunize your children. Again, I will cover my ranting and raving about that in a travel video because that's where it's really important. But yes, immunize your children. I always support that, particularly against things like measles and chickenpox, because, well, why chickenpox can't kill you, it's awfully miserable, and why you want your child to suffer through that, I don't know. And measles is deadly. German measles is deadly. The mumps can be deadly. They also can make your children blind, deaf, and maimed. So, as well as polio. Don't do that. We don't want those diseases, particularly we don't want them spreading. So, again, immunize your children. But that looks like it. Back to the education, yeah. Required subjects, you need to keep these records, standardized tests, copy of your schedule, description of all assessment methods, and copies of instructional manuals. Okay, I doubt people are actually asking for that. I really doubt some of this stuff, particularly the instructional manuals. They don't care. They're probably too busy. At least I would hope they're too busy. Again, let's move on to the next state, which is Mississippi. Mississippi. One state that people, me and my sister used to try to say as fast as we could, Mississippi. Let's see. So you have to have a Mississippi Certificate of Enrollment. So they require you to complete a certificate of enrollment for each child you plan to teach and submit it to the school attendance officer of the county where you reside. So interesting, attendance officer. And you have to get a copy of the certificate. To get a copy of the certificate, contact your local school attendance officer. So, and in general, Mississippi homeschool form will require the following information: parent's name, address, phone number, standard information, name, pretty much the same information, date of birth of the kid, a simple description of the type of education the child is receiving, name of non-public school where they're receiving instruction, and signature of parent or an appropriate school official if the child is enrolled in a non-public school. This is interesting. So let's see. They must submit the letter to the attendance officer no later than September 15th each year. So this is a yearly thing. So record keeping, they don't require records. So they get a recommendation, you keep a portfolio. That's one of the things that can help kids get into college, is that portfolio there, as well as transcripts possibly. And this is just going into the graduation. All right, they have compulsory attendance until they are 17, but that's kind of it. So it doesn't look like there are, any required testing, public and private schools. There are no testing requirements. So that is Mississippi. Let's move on to the next state in our list is Missouri. So next state. Moving on to Missouri here. So that's Missouri homeschool laws. Clicking here. Let's see. All the way down here. Okay, so record keeping. Here we go. Requirements. They must be in school by age 7. And they must keep a sample of each homeschooler work, keep a record of periodic assessments, provide documentation of at least 1,000 hours of instruction during their annual school term. So you must notify your public school that you're planning on homeschooling and withdrawing your kid. Let's see. Keep samples of work, keep assessments, and yes, document hours. So I'm guessing the superintendent can possibly ask for this stuff. So double check. No, they do not regulate. The Department of Education does not regulate or monitor homeschool education. So, and there are no state regulations, but it is a good idea to understand and report things if you can, and keep records, because one, if you want your kids to go to college, and two, if your kid is already in public school, you should probably notify them, otherwise they'll come looking for you. So that is Missouri. Moving on to Nebraska. Nebraska homeschooling laws. So let's see. Homeschool laws in Nebraska are considered non-approved and non-accredited private schools. Interesting. Parents must fill out an exemption under Rule 13 for a child between the ages of 6 and 18 to avoid issues. So let's see. And let's see. Here we go. Homeschooling laws. So yes, you must comply with mandatory attendance law. It must submit required forms to exempt the school program by July 15th of each year. A statement of education, execution and assurances, authorization of parent representative form, so paperwork, instructional summary detailing your homeschooling program, including a birth certificate of all children. So basically, you have to prove these children exist. So teach language, arts, mathematics, science, social studies, health, and serving the children master these skills. Teach 1,032 hours for elementary school and 1,080 for secondary school. So I'm guessing that's high school through middle school. And let's see. Must keep attendance records. Yeah, you just have to. This is the other one. You have to send a notice of intent to homeschool, and all these paperwork. And I believe this is every year. Yeah, so this isn't every year. You have to send a notice of intent and various paperwork and certified birth certificates every year to basically let them know you're homeschooling. And nope, no record keeping required, and no testing. Most of these places do not have testing requirements. That's the reason they're relatively easy. So on to Nevada. Next. All right, Nevada. So Nevada homeschool laws. So let's see here. So you have to file a one-time notice of intent to homeschool form with the educational plan of instruction. Teach the required subjects in homeschool: English, math, science, social studies, including history, geography, economics, and government, and the reading, composition, and writing as part of English. Send a letter of intent, child's full name, gender, and age. Interesting, they had gender there. Your name and address, a statement letter declaring you have legal right to basically educate your children. Essentially, you have legal rights to said children, and an education plan which includes required subjects stated above, and a statement prohibiting release of information you have provided to your notice of intent, which is optional. So that is it, and I do not believe there's any. Again, they recommend you keep a portfolio, and that's kind of been standard. Again, that helps with graduation. So let's see, no graduation requirements, and I'm going to skip over if you plan to go to public school. So, and moving on to, we just did Nevada, on to, oddly enough, New Hampshire. New Hampshire is relatively easy here too. So let's see. Homeschooling laws here. So, okay, this is the instruction between the ages of 6 and 18. You must send a notice of intent to the school principal listing the students' names, birth dates, and addresses within 5 days of beginning homeschool. Teach the required subjects: science, math, language, arts, government, history, health, reading, writing, spelling, and the history of the constitutions of New Hampshire and the United States, and exposure to an appreciation of art and music. Keep a portfolio, and samples for each student should be preserved for 2 years after instruction ended, and have each student evaluated annually. Acceptable methods of testing meet with the certified teacher or reviewing the student's portfolio, or a combination of both. So no actual, you can do standardized testing, but you can also meet with like a tutor or something, and they can evaluate your kid. So notice of intent to the commissioner of the Department of Education, the school district superintendent, or the principal of the school. So yeah, just one of those. And yes, notice of intent must include list of students' names between 6 and 18. And you do believe, yeah, you have to do this every year. So yeah, notice of intent, yeah, pretty much looks like every year that you have to do this. Double check that. Yeah. Kind of looks like this is an annual thing. So yeah. So that's it for New Hampshire. Moving on to New Mexico. New Mexico homeschooling laws. Moving on. Pretty sure you're just doing online registration with these guys. Yeah, they have a compulsory attendance law between the ages of 5 and 18. So this is one of the youngest. They need to comply with the following requirements. Be the child's parent or legal guardian, and hold a high school diploma or GED. And you must have a copy of your diploma for your file so they can check. Notify the new New Mexico Public Education Department within 30 days of starting your homeschool. Homeschool is required to account for time, so generally 80 to 180 days. Teach the required subjects of reading, language arts, math, social studies, science. Keep a copy of your child's immunization records, always a good idea. And send a written notification that you will continue to homeschool by August 1st every year. So that looks like it's it. So you can choose whatever curriculum you want. Again, recommend keep a portfolio. Most of them say this. So you can, let's see, graduation requirements, GED, high school diploma, non-New Mexico diploma or high school equivalencies. So homeschooling program. So that's high school stuff. But that is New Mexico, so relatively easily. And let us move on to North Carolina. Like North Carolina is relatively easy as well. That is where my sister's husband and his family are from, the North Carolinas. Okay, so maybe regulations date, let's see. Okay, so to homeschool in North Carolina, parents must have at least a high school diploma. They must file a notice of intent to homeschool in North Carolina Department of Non-Public Education. They must keep attendance and immunization records on file. Homeschool students should take a nationally standardized test each year and keep the results on record for 1 year. The homeschool should operate on a regular schedule of at least 9 months of the school year. Families should notify I'm guessing this is the North Carolina Department of Non-Public Education when they finish their school year. And yes, there is a full exemption, possibly. There's a little bit more information there. Check out this website. I'll link it in each of the videos so you can check that out. And always check with your state. I'm just a person on the internet reading information, so let's see. Yeah, notice of intent to homeschool every year. And let's see. That looks about it. Yeah, basically keep records. Subjects covered, parents administered online school reports and assessments, yearly standardized tests, and high school transcripts if your student is 9 to 12. And I've seen some discussion about that where parents make them up, or they have companies that will make them up for you, make them look more official. So that is North Carolina. We are now moving on to North Dakota here. So North Dakota homeschool laws. Here we go. Let's see, homeschooling. Okay, looks like they might be more complicated than I thought in North Dakota. So let's see. Necessary requirements. Under homeschool education law, let's see, you have to have a GED or be a certified teacher, must have a high school diploma or GED, or have a North Dakota certified teacher monitor your first 2 years of homeschooling. So I'm guessing most people could have a GED. File notice of intent to homeschool 14 days before you start every year. Teach your child a minimum of 175 days a year, 4 hours each school day. Teach the minimum required subjects: math, language arts, social studies, science, physical education, and health in elementary and middle school. Math, language arts, social studies, science, physical education, and foreign language or fine arts or career or technical education in high school. Maintain records including courses taken, test scores, academic progress. If you choose to homeschool as a private school, which you have to be a certified teacher, undergo criminal record checks, and basically act like a private school. So I'm guessing that is not going to be common. And you still have to send in a letter of intent and copy of, this is something, yeah, homeschool with special needs. Well, yeah, you spent letter of intent, copy of child diagnosis, and I doubt anybody's going to do that. The first option is just easier. So you send the notice of intent with child's name, address, date of birth, and grade level. Pretty standard information. Parents' name, address, qualifications, and any public school courses or extracurricular activities in which the child intends to participate. So I'm guessing this is one of the states that allows homeschool students to be part of like school extracurricular activities. So record keeping, courses taken by the child, academic progress, standardized achievements, tests, and other records. So that looks like it. So apparently the North Dakota will issue a high school diploma to these students. So with given private information, when provided with different information. So that is interesting. So that is North Dakota. Let us move on to Ohio. Getting close to the end here. So Ohio. That is my father's home state and both of his parents. So they came from Ohio. So let's see. Homeschool requirements. You must have a minimum of a high school diploma or GED or standardized test scores that exhibit equivalency of a diploma. Interesting. And any parent meeting the educational standard can legally homeschool in the state. Okay. So let's see. Curriculum is up to parents. Notification. So again, this is school. Basically, you have to teach your kid between the ages of 6 and 18 in the state of Ohio. So notification must be sent to the Department of Education website, name, address, contact information of parents, name, birth date of each child that will be homeschooled, your qualifications for eligibility, i.e. your high school diploma or GED, assurance that you will teach all required subjects, assurance that your instruction will be at least 900 hours of home education, an outline summary of intended curriculum for the given year, list of curricula or teaching materials you'll be using. So that's the paperwork. And then let's see, you have to do this every year, but they also include assessment of the homeschooler. The assessment should include one of the following: a standardized test or a written narrative evaluation of the child's academic progress by a certified teacher or approved person, or an alternative form of assessment agreed on by both the parents and the superintendent. So I'm guessing either a standardized test or you have a certified teacher look at things. So let's see, record keeping looks like basically it's a portfolio kind of thing. So standardized results of standardized tests, curriculum subjects, stuff like that. And for high schoolers, transcript and samples of the students' work. So essentially a portfolio thing. And that is it for Ohio. Moving on to Oregon. Let's see, Oregon homeschool laws. So these should be relatively simple here. Clicking on that, there we go. So you must send a letter of intent to homeschool within 10 days of starting your homeschool program or within 10 days of withdrawing your child from public school. Requires name, date, birth certificate of all children being homeschooled, the name of the school your child attends or previously attended, or if he or she never attended school, the name of the school district where you reside. And apparently you should receive a receipt of acknowledgement from the Department of Education within 90 days. Again, they recommend you keep a high school diploma and high school transcripts, and that is it. So Oregon, again, is relatively easy. Again, you probably have to do annual registration. Moving on to Rhode Island. Some of these are a little bit more complicated than others. Most of them are relatively simple. Again, mostly it's just registration. So let's look at homeschool laws here. Schools require between 6 to 17. Letter of intent. You must send a letter of intent to homeschool to within child's name, age, grade level of each student, and a copy of the proposed curriculum every year. That looks about it. You have to send this to the district or contact the local district committee to figure out which district you are in. So, and that looks like about it. So that's it. You have to keep attendance and basically keep a portfolio of curriculum, lesson plans, yearly work report cards, stuff like that, as well as standardized tests if you choose to take them. So, and that is it for Rhode Island. Moving on to South Dakota. So, South Dakota homeschooling laws. Let's get to South Dakota here. Okay. So, let's see. You do have to file a letter of intent. So, you have to complete and file a notification to the public school exemption certificate annually. So every year here, your kid does have to take a standardized achievement test in grades 4, 8, or 11. Provide education of the equivalent period of time for public schools. Include language arts and mathematics, and keep good records. So attendance records, and I don't know why your child wouldn't be there. It's at home. So, and they're required to teach up to 18 and teach no more than 22 students at a time. That's interesting. Moving on. So yeah, your exemption form should include your public school district, name, address, date of birth of the children, along with parents must also include 3 documents listed below. A copy of the child's birth certificate to be submitted within 30 days, an affidavit in place of the birth certificate issued by the State Department of Health, or an affidavit notarized or witnessed by 2 or more people affirming the child listed on the form is the same child appearing on the birth certificate. So basically, you have to prove your child exists. Yeah, they have to be tested in grades 4, 8, and 11, and they have to take a standardized achievement test on basic skills. The test is free of charge, but basically they provide their own test. In January, the local public school district will notify you about testing requirement. So that looks about it. Again, keep a portfolio, keeping test records. Apparently the school district is required to keep the records on file. And that looks like it. So North Dakota is actually more complicated than you would think it would be. Moving on to Utah. Getting close to the end here of this video. Let us see here, Utah homeschooling laws. Utah. So let's see. You file a notarized Utah homeschool affidavit with your local school district. So let's see, you're not required to homeschool for any period of time or teach any specific subject, so they're really loose on this. So again, they don't really require any. This might be just once. Let's see. Do a quick reading. Yep, only submitted once. So similar to Arizona, it's like, here's paperwork, just once. Again, recommended you keep a portfolio, and that looks like it. So very, very easy in Utah. Moving on to, this has got to be our last one, Wisconsin. So this is going to be the last state of this video. Wisconsin homeschooling laws. Wisconsin homeschooling laws. Let's see here. So again, this is a notice, file a notice of intent to homeschool. Enrollment report. Okay, so the intent to homeschool report, which looks like PI 1206, also referred to as Homer. Interesting. And it has to be done online by October 15th of every year. So students, including the students who will be homeschooled, the number of students who will be homeschooled here, state your main purpose to provide private or religious-based education. Okay, affirm your homeschool is privately controlled by you. State you will provide at least 175 hours of instruction for a child. State that you will provide a basically a progressive curriculum for all students aged 6 to 18 in reading, language arts, sequentially progressive is what they're quoting here. Curriculum for all students ages 6 to 18 in reading, language arts, math, social studies, science, and health. Okay, so interesting wording there. So they want for record keeping examples of work by grade level, including tests and quizzes. List of all books read, interesting. Extracurricular activities, writing samples including handwriting, essays, etc. Homeschool transcripts for high school students. Any documents required by your state. Medical, so attendance records, interesting. But that is Wisconsin for you. And that is it for this. So my next video will cover pretty much those last few states that have pretty much no laws whatsoever. Except for, you actually need to school your children. That is the law. Don't not school your children, but these are the states that are more likely to have kids fall through the cracks. There's only a couple of them. I think there's only like 3 or 4 that actually have no homeschooling laws at all. though, of course, with the whole COVID-19 thing, that may change, but considering one of these states is Texas, I'm not going to count on Texas doing anything. They're highly independent, and that has been their downfall, considering the massive mess they're running into with their power. Yeah, massive storm. This video has been done in the spring of 2021. So that is it for basically these states that had a little, they're still kind of complicated. Mostly it's just registration. So if you like this video, want to see more, want to look at my book reviews, want to look at more of my education law reviews, like and subscribe. Again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an education expert. Do not take my word on these things. Check your state, always. So thank you.